So I made a new friend today, and I can already tell that it's somebody that I'm going to be friends with for a long time, possibly ever. It's hard to say forever, but I really get that feeling that this is going to be a long-lasting friendship. And it's got me thinking a lot about friends and people and relationships and people coming and going through your life. And I heard this quote one time. I wish I could remember who it was by. I think it's one of those quotes that's probably been attributed to a few dozen different people, and I'm Jay Shetty at some point, I'm sure. I'm just kidding. But somebody said that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I think about that a lot, because there's a lot of different kinds of people in your life, and there's a lot of different kinds of people that come through. I look back over the years, 31 years is not a very long life yet. I've only experienced the first, hopefully third or even less of my time here. But I think about all the hundreds of people that have come and gone through my life over the years, and all of the different relationships I've had, and the different needs that all of these different people fulfilled, and I think about that quote a lot, because for a long time, ever since I was a young child, when my dad was out of my life, I've struggled with serious abandonment issues. And it's only been the last couple years that I've actively been working on that, and actually even known that it was a problem for me. And because of that, I've spent a lot of years struggling to let go of people, and struggling to let friendships change and grow and move over the years. And when I think about that quote, that people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, it's just, when I look back over my life, it's so true. You have the reason people, there's people that are in your life for a particular reason. Either you fill a role in their life for some reason, or they fill a role in your life for some reason, and they're around, and maybe there's a lesson they're supposed to teach you, or maybe there's an experience you're supposed to have with those people, or you just never know exactly what the reason is. But very often, when that reason has been fulfilled, those relationships sort of peter off, and different people will go different directions in their life, and it's very rarely a case of hard feelings or a fallout or a breakup or anything like that. It's usually just that people part ways, and that's how it goes. And I think about people that I worked with when I was in the oil field, not the people that I worked with at the company where I worked. I consider those seasonal friends, but the ones that I would work with on a one-off job basis, where they would send me to Valley View or something for a plant turnaround for a week, and I would work with these people and live with these people and be with them 24/7 for a week, 24/7, 24 hours a day for at least a few days anyway. And you develop this bond, and especially in a work situation, it's interesting because you put your life in these guys' hands, and there's a huge amount of trust even though you don't actually know each other. And the only reason you're there is to work together, and when that work purpose is fulfilled, when that reason is fulfilled, the relationship is over. And for me, those have always been the easiest people to let go of, because I think back on them and I don't have an emotional attachment to them. I don't have a personal connection. It's just like, oh yeah, that was a funny story of the time I was working with that guy, or that guy I met at the RMP plant, or there's so many people like that, right? And they're just kind of transient characters in my life story. And then there's the seasonal friends. These are a little bit more attached kind of people, and these are just they're the kind of people that come into your life and they're around for a certain season of life. I think of the people I drove truck with at Extreme, or the people that I landscaped with when I used to work for another landscaping company. These are guys I haven't seen in 6-7 years, some of them even longer. But we had that tight connection bond, and we would go for drinks on Friday afternoons almost every week, and we would hang out with each other at our birthdays, and we would celebrate each other's victories, and we'd commiserate through each other's struggles, and you develop this almost family connection. And yet, when that season of life moves on, you don't put the effort in, oftentimes. Sometimes you do. There are work friends I've had over the years that I still am very much connected with, but those are lifetime friends, and it's different. But those people, those seasonal friends for me are a little more difficult, and it often depends how many seasons we went through together. You know, if we were together for 2-3 years, I have difficulties letting go of those people, but if we worked together for 6, 7, 8 months or even a year, it's easier, and some of them it's easy to let go of anyway. But that brings me to the third type of person, and this is the lifetime friends, the lifetime connections. And these are few and far between, and guys, you've got to treasure these people. You have to. And the crazy part about it is you never know who they're gonna be, right? I was thinking the other day, there's this guy that I met when I first moved to St. Paul, and on paper, we shouldn't be friends. You know, we didn't really have anything in common. We had a few sort of common interests, but not really. But we very much started out as seasonal friends. You know, we were friends because of the convenience. We met through a mutual friend, one of my roommates, and we got together. But we had this really interesting bonding experience the first night we met. And when I think throughout my life at many of the lifetime friends, we've had these very, very strange bonding experiences. You know, I think of one of my best friends growing up, and he and I were very close for a long time, but then there was this one incident where we were out for a hike and we got too far away from our group, and the group thought we had gotten lost, and it turned into this whole thing, and the rest of the group went back to the parking lot, ended up calling search and rescue to come out and look for us. Meanwhile, my friend and I were sitting on the top of the mountain that we had all set out to climb, waiting for the rest of the group. We're sitting there on the top, and we took a nap at one point. We fell asleep, just like, where are they? It's one mountain, there's only one top, they gotta be here soon, right? At one point, we're looking down. It was a cool setting too. Like, we're on the mountain above this river valley, and like there's mountains on the other side of the river, but there's this huge long valley in between us, and there's a helicopter flying along, and it looked like it had red and white markings. And here in Canada, red and white markings are often emergency services of some kind, and if you're in the wilderness, it's very commonly a search and rescue helicopter. And it was flying down the valley, and it was well below us. Like, it was not up at the top of the mountain, it was flying the valley looking for somebody in the valley. And I jokingly said to my friend, I'm like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if they were looking for us? And the thing is, I was only kind of half joking, and he knew exactly what I meant, and he looked at me and he kind of did the nervous giggle. And anyway, we sat there for a couple hours and we hiked back down. We get to the bottom, and there's our scout leader, but none of the other scouts. And he was looking white, like not just his skin color, his face had no color in it. And we get back and he just looked at us and said, where were you? And we told him, we're like, we got a little ahead on the trail and we went up the mountain and we were waiting and waiting and waiting for you guys, and when nobody showed up, we just turned around and came back. He's like, and then he proceeded to tell us that they had taken all the other kids back to town and called their parents, and it was this whole ordeal, and they had called the search team, and the helicopter that we jokingly said, wouldn't it be funny if they're looking for us, had been looking for us. But it was this wild bonding experience, and him and I have been like this ever since. You know, he's one of those guys, I see him maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and that's enough. You know, we'll see him for an hour, maybe 2 at a time, and we'll go for breakfast, or we'll sit and have tea or something like that, and we just catch up, and it's great. And if we don't do that every 6 or 7 months, we really miss it. But we don't have to do it more frequently than that. And I truly believe that it was that weird bonding experience we had that solidified that from being just a seasonal friendship of one of my friends from high school to a lifelong friendship, because we had this crazy shared mutual experience. And I think a lot about this other friend of mine that I started talking about from when I was in my truck driving days. And I had moved to St. Paul, and I was living with this guy and his girlfriend and their kid, and it was kind of a weird situation to be living in, but I'm used to living in weird situations, so who cares? It was fine. It was our first or second night there. I think it was our second night there. Yeah, it must have been, because our first night there was the night I moved up. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're having a fire in the backyard, and my roommate invited his buddy over. And he came over, we're talking, he's from Ontario. We nothing really in common, other that he used to be into racing mountain bikes. I used to want to be into racing mountain bikes, although I never did go anywhere with it. But there wasn't really anything that we should have in common. But over the course of the night, I drank very heavily back then. Everybody drank very heavily back then, and we'd been drinking the beers and talking, and conversation was flowing. We were having a good time, and then we busted out the Everclear. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Everclear, keep it that way. This stuff is awful. It's like basically rubbing alcohol that's not denatured, so it's not. It would kill you if you drank too much of it, 100%, but it's not designed to be poisonous. It's actually meant to be drank, and it's like 96% alcohol by volume or something. It might even be stronger than that. It's like, it lights on fire. It's crazy, crazy strong stuff, and we started doing shots of Everclear, and it was chaos. But then the conversation moved, you know, we had been talking about bicycles and all this stuff, and we're sitting around the fire, and Andrew, my buddy, says, hey, I'm gonna go home and get my unicycle. And I looked at him and I was like, you ride a unicycle? Now this is strange because, I mean, you don't run into people that ride unicycles that often. And in the town where I lived, you really don't run into people that ride unicycles because, I mean, riding a unicycle, it would be a little out there for the locals. But he's telling me all about how he rides a unicycle, and he's got this great mountain unicycle, and in my head I'm like, oh, this is interesting, because I am also a unicyclist. But I didn't tell him that. So he's telling me all, oh yeah, and I'm gonna go home and get it and I'll show you, and he's gonna show off. Meanwhile, we were crazy drunk, like stupidly drunk and pretty stoned and like just in a bad state of mind, right? We shouldn't have been riding unicycles anyway. So he brings this thing over, and he gets up, and he fell and crashed a couple times, and then my other roommate, this other guy didn't actually live with us, but he got on the unicycle and he wiped out a couple times, ended up going flying down a set of stairs, and then I jumped on the thing, and I hadn't told anybody. There was one guy in the house that knew I could ride a unicycle, but he was busy dealing with his kid. And I jumped on the unicycle and rode away. And everybody was just like, because I mean, I'm not a small dude. I think at that point I was like 300 pounds, 6'4". Like, I'm a big man. So to see me just hop on a unicycle and ride away was crazy unexpected. It was so cool. And it was, again, one of those strange bonding experiences, because, you know, we bonded over unicycles, and then we would ride unicycles, and then the next time I went back down to my hometown and was near my storage unit, I got my unicycle out of the storage unit. And my unicycle had a 29-inch wheel, and it was built for high-speed, long-distance travel, whereas his unicycle had a 20-inch wheel, big, thick wheel, and it was built for trials. So it was two very, very different styles of unicycle riding. And we each had a bike that was capable of it. So I taught him to ride the big wheel unicycle, he taught me to ride the trials unicycle, and we had a lot of fun, and it was one of those unusual bonding experiences, right? And, you know, by all accounts, he would have been the kind of person who was a seasonal friend. You know, somebody that I hung around with while I was in town and didn't have anyone else to hang around with. And when he eventually went his way and I eventually went my way, by all accounts of my history with people like that, we should have fallen out of touch. We shouldn't really have maintained a friendship. I haven't actually spoken to him verbally, other than sending him a couple of voice message texts in over 3 years now. But we've maintained a connection, and every 2 or 3 weeks we'll send each other texts or updates on our life, or he'll send me a picture of some tool he's thinking of buying and ask my advice on it, or I'll help him. He's thinking of starting up a landscape company and I'll give him advice on that, and it goes back and forth. And I truly believe that the only reason we still have that connection is because of liquor and unicycles and the fact that we had this weird, crazy bonding experience. So I think about that, and then I think about the people I've met over the last few years at like personal growth events and like the speaking academy that I did. Some of those people are lifelong friends now, and I've made more lifelong friends in the last couple of years than I had the entire rest of my life. And I believe it's because I do these crazy things now, and we have these crazy bonding experiences. You know, like some of the people from Speaking Academy that are lifelong friends are people that I was up till 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning dancing and partying with on the last night, you know, having the time of our lives. An unusual experience that brings people together and creates those bonds. So when they say people come into your life for a reason or a season or a lifetime, it's true, and you do have to be okay with letting people come into and exit your life and all of that stuff, but you also should be on the lookout, because there are people that are going to come into your life that you're going to want to maintain a lifelong connection with. And I mean, in this day and age of instant communication and texting and all this stuff, it's so easy to lose that connection when you're not in close proximity or when you have distance come up between you. But if you can find those opportunities for those unusual bonding experiences, those unusual things, like I mean, there's so many things that bring people together, but it's always the unusual stuff, the adversities, the challenges, the difficulties that we face together that cements those lifelong friendships and makes them solid. So when you find one of those people that you want to be a lifelong friend, make the effort to go and have an unusual bonding experience with them. Do something that's out of the ordinary and solidify that friendship, and be a little bit strategic and deliberate about it, because you might surprise yourself and you might find that it actually does work. I mean, I've never tried it on purpose, I'll be honest, but when I look through my life, all the people who have accidentally become the lifelong friends are exactly those people that I had those types of experiences with. So it was just interesting, you know. I thought it's been rolling around in my mind for a few days, and then I met this person today that really cemented the idea, and it was just like, yeah, you know what, it's true. And I've just been thinking about it, and I wanted to share it. So this has been a long one. Thank you for sticking with me. I hope you find some value and some meaning in my words here, and that it can bring some impact to your life in some way. And if it doesn't, that's okay too, because everybody's different and everybody needs something different. But just remember that, you know, when you're struggling to let go of somebody from your life, remember that maybe they were just supposed to be there for a reason or a season. And remember that there are ways you can make people stick around, but that there are different kinds of people in your life too, and there's a place for all of them, and there's a place for everyone, and that's okay. You know, you got to be okay with the changes and the fluctuations and the transient nature of a lot of people's presence in your life, because people have their own lives that are equally as nuanced and complicated and crazy as your own, and you know nothing about them. So sometimes when people leave, we take it personally, and it's not always the case. You know, we don't have to take things hard. We don't have to take things like that, and we can just accept that some of our crazier friends are going to be around forever because we've had those experiences with them, and some of our maybe more plain, more boring friends are maybe a little shorter lived, and that's okay. It's totally okay. So anyway, thanks for being here. I'm super glad that you check out these videos and that we have these opportunities to talk. I love hearing all the comments I get from you guys. The messages I've been getting lately have just filled my heart up so much. It's really truly an honor to know that some of what I have to say is benefiting some people, and that the words I have to share impact people's lives and improve them in some way. And that's so meaningful to me, because ultimately that's my mission in life, is to improve people's lives in everything I do, in every person I interact with, all of it. And hearing that it's working through these videos is really gratifying and really wonderful, and it's just such an honor to have this opportunity to shine some light into the world a little bit, I guess. You know, that's the word people keep using. I'm not sure that I see it, but I'm choosing to believe them and know that what I'm doing is doing some good, and it's having a massive impact on my own life too, guys. Like, the last few weeks have been awesome. I have reached another stage of personal growth, I feel like, and I'm at a massive leveling up of everything that I do, which is a really nice feeling, and it's been a long time coming, and a huge part of it has been due to the support that I get from these videos, and also just the opportunity to talk through some of the stuff that's rattling around in my mind and share it with the world like this. it's just been massively impactful. So thank you for that, and thank you for being here with me, and thank you for all the shares and the good words and the comment, like all of it. It's so awesome, and I couldn't do it without you. I really couldn't. There would be no point. I would be bored, I would be tired, I would be lonely, I would have all kinds of excuses, and I'm just really, really appreciative that I have this medium to communicate with the world, and that I've been given this gift of being a good storyteller and a reasonably articulate speaker who can get my point across in a way that inspires other people and helps other people and just ultimately does some kind of good in the world. The world needs more good these days. I'm glad to be one of the people that can provide some of that. So I'll see you again next time. I'll speak to you again very soon.